There's a strange paradox in human behavior. The louder the silence, the more profound the truth it holds. In our relationships, especially with those who seem distant, there's often a hidden world of unspoken emotions guarded by fear and cloaked in avoidance. But what if I told you there is a silent test stone, single act that doesn't require confrontation or manipulation, yet it has the power to uncover the true depth of someone's emotions? It's not about trapping them or forcing a reaction. Instead, it's about creating a moment so honest, so revealing, that the truth emerges naturally. This isn't just about understanding theme, it's about understanding yourself, about growing into someone capable of navigating even the most complex emotional landscapes with wisdom and clarity. The silence you seek to decode is not just theirs, it's also yours. And within that silence lies your greatest opportunity for growth. This is not merely about relationships, it's about courage, your courage to face the unseen, to stop chasing words and instead listen to actions. Because actions, even those made in hesitation, are where the soul whispers its deepest truths. The greatest strength we possess, yet often overlook, is the power of restraint. To stand firm in the face of provocation, to resist the impulse to retaliate, to allow silence to fill the space where conflict could erupt us, is not weakness, it is the embodiment of wisdom. When you refuse to react to the emotional storms of another, you become an anchor, immovable and unshaken, holding steady even as chaos swirls around you. Non-reaction is not passive, it is deeply active. It is the deliberate choice to rise above the urge to control, to demand, or to dominate. It requires an unwavering faith in something greater than the immediate moment, greater than the fleeting satisfaction of having the last word. It is written in Proverbs, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." Yet sometimes even a soft answer is unnecessary. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Consider this. In every relationship, there are moments of tension, of misunderstanding, of unmet expectations. These moments tempt us to jump in, to fix, to explain, to force clarity where confusion reigns. But what if instead you paused? What if you allowed the silence to reveal what words cannot? Silence is a mirror, and in that stillness, people are left to confront their own reflection. It forces them to wrestle with their own thoughts, their own fears, their own truth. When you refuse to react, you are not abandoning the relationship. You are giving it room to breathe, to expand, to find its own equilibrium. Think of Christ before his accusers, standing silent, unyielding, allowing their words to fall like waves upon the rock of his conviction. He did not need to defend himself, for truth does not require defense. Truth is its own foundation, and it stands firm whether acknowledged or denied. In your silence, you demonstrate trust not in the other person's immediate response, but in the deeper unfolding process of revelation. By choosing non-reaction, you signal that you are not ruled by the fear of losing control or by the need for immediate validation. Instead, you operate from a place of strength rooted in patience and self-assurance. This does not mean ignoring problems or avoiding accountability. Far from it. It means stepping back long enough to allow emotions to settle, to let clarity rise like the sun after a storm. It means resisting the compulsion to fight fire with fire, knowing that still waters reflect the heavens far more clearly than turbulent waves. When someone tests your boundaries, when their words are sharp or their actions unclear, your silence becomes a boundary of its own. It says, I will not engage on these terms. I will not allow this moment to dictate my peace. This is not just a strategy for relationships. It is a principle for life. The ability to restrain yourself, to hold your ground without aggression, is a testament to the strength of your character. Non-reaction is an act of faith in yourself, in the process, and in the possibility of deeper understanding. It is a declaration that you are not a slave to impulsive emotion, but a steward of wisdom, capable of choosing what truly serves the greater good. In the silence, there is power. In the pause, there is transformation. Avoidance is a curious mask, one crafted not from malice but from fear. It is the shield of those who are terrified of being seen, truly seen in all their imperfection and vulnerability. To avoid is to hide, not from the world alone, but from oneself, and therein lies its tragedy. For what is life if not the gradual revelation of who we are to ourselves and to others? To resist that revelation is to reject the very essence of existence, and yet so many succumb to this resistance, entangled in the web of their own defenses. When someone withdraws, when they choose distance over connection, it is not because they feel nothing. Quite the contrary, avoidance often signals the presence of deep and complex emotions, emotions that overwhelm their capacity to engage. It is the quiet voice of fear whispering, "If you look too closely, you will see my flaws. If you come too near, you will discover my inadequacies." This is the paradox of avoidance. It is both a wall and a cry for help, a desperate attempt to protect and a subtle yearning to be pursued. In the scriptures, we see this dynamic mirrored in the story of Adam and Eve. After the fall, they hid from God in the garden, their avoidance born not of hatred but of shame. They feared his gaze because it would expose their transgressions, yet even in their hiding, they longed for reconciliation. This is the nature of avoidance it seeks to conceal, yet it betrays a yearning for the very connection it resists. Understanding this is crucial. To label the avoidant as cold or indifferent is to miss the mark entirely. They are not devoid of feeling. They are overwhelmed by it. Their retreat is not rejection, but self-preservation, a flawed strategy born of past wounds and unhealed traumas. They fear that to step forward, to face the vulnerability of connection, is to risk annihilation. And so they retreat, not because they do not care, but because they care too much. It is tempting to chase, to demand answers, to force engagement from those who pull away, but this often backfires, deepening their retreat and reinforcing their fears. Instead, we must approach with patience, with wisdom, and with the understanding that their avoidance is not about use, it is about them. We must create a space where their defenses can slowly crumble, not under the weight of pressure, but in the presence of grace. This requires strength. It requires the ability to stand firm in the face of their distance, to resist the urge to fill the silence with noise, and to trust that true connection cannot be forced, it must be invited. And it requires faith. Faith that even the most fortified walls can eventually give way to the persistent light of understanding and compassion. To see avoidance for what it truly is, a reflection of fear, not apatheia, to free yourself from the cycle of frustration and blame. It is to recognize that behind the distance lies a soul in conflict, a heart yearning for safety, yet terrified of exposure. And in this recognition lies the power to respond not with anger or desperation, but with the kind of love that transforms fear into trust. A mirror is an object of both revelation and confrontation. When you stand before it, it offers no illusions, no comforting distortions. It reflects back exactly what is there. And yet we rarely think of ourselves as mirrors for others, though we are. Each of us reflects something profound to those we encounter, whether consciously or not. The question is not whether you will reflect, but what you will reflect. And when it comes to the avoidant, the mirror you hold up must be one of courage, stability, and self-awareness. The avoidant, by their very nature, resists emotional intimacy because they are terrified of what that intimacy might reveal. Their fear is not simply of you, but of themselves, of what they might be forced to confront if they let their guard down. When you engage with someone who avoids, you are engaging with the battlefield of their own inner turmoil, a conflict between the longing for connection and the fear of rejection or inadequacy. The only way to navigate such a relationship with wisdom is to ensure that the mirror you hold up to them is one they are not afraid to look into. This begins with self-awareness. For how can you reflect stability if you yourself are consumed by insecurity? The biblical instruction to remove the plank from your own eye before addressing the speck in your brother's is profoundly relevant here. Before you can help someone confront their fears, you must confront your own. You must become someone whose presence is a sanctuary, not a storm. When you cultivate self-awareness, you cease to react impulsively to the avoidance behavior. Their distance no longer triggers your fear of abandonment, your frustration, or your need for control. Instead, you recognize their avoidance for what it truly is: a symptom of their internal struggle, not a judgment of your worth. In doing so, you transform the relationship dynamic. You become a steady presence, a mirror that reflects not their fears, but their potential for growth and connection. This is no small task. To be self-aware is to constantly examine your own motivations, to question whether your actions stem from love or from the need to satisfy your ego. It is to resist the urge to demand validation and instead offer understanding. But when you achieve this, you create a space where transformation becomes possible. The avoidant begins to see, perhaps for the first time, that connection does not have to come at the cost of their safety. Consider how Christ engaged with those who were broken and afraid. He did not force his way into their hearts. He invited them. He reflected their dignity back to them, even when they could not see it themselves. He showed them that they were more than their fears, more than their failures. And in doing so, he changed them. To hold up such a mirror requires immense courage. It requires the willingness to see yourself clearly and to offer that clarity to others, even when they resist it. But it is through this process, through self-awareness and reflection, that you create the possibility for true connection, for the kind of relationship that is not built on fear, but on trust and mutual respect. Absence is a paradox, a vacuum that somehow amplifies what is left unsaid. When someone withdraws, when their presence fades into the distance, we often mistake this void for indifference. But in truth, absence speaks volumes. It magnifies intention and distills emotion, often revealing more about a person's priorities and feelings than their words ever could. Consider this: what we value, we invest in. It's an immutable principle, as true in the spiritual realm as it is in the material world. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. This truth transcends circumstance. In relationships, time and attention are the treasures we offer. And when those treasures are withheld, the void that remains exposes the authenticity or lack thereof of the bond. Yet, absence is not merely a revelation of the other. It is also a crucible for your own character. When faced with distance, your reaction reveals your level of emotional maturity. Do you fill the gap with assumptions fueled by insecurity and fear? Do you chase, desperately seeking to close the distance, or do you sit with the discomfort, allowing it to clarify the truth? Absence tests not only the intentions of others, but your own capacity for patience and trust. It is in the silence of absence that true intentions become clear. If a relationship matters to someone, the absence will create a pull, a gravitational force that compels them to return, to bridge the gap. If it does not, their absence will be permanent, and this too is a gift. For clarity is better than the illusion of connection. The space created by absence is not an abyss, it is a mirror reflecting what lies beneath the surface. The Bible often speaks of the power of waiting, of allowing time to unfold truth. Isaiah writes, "Those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength." Waiting is not a passive act, it is a profound declaration of faith. To wait, to allow space, to resist the urge, to force a resolution, this requires immense strength. It is the discipline of trusting the process, of believing that what is true will endure and what is false will fall away. Absence also has the power to deepen bonds, to illuminate the value of what has been taken for granted. When someone steps back, it gives both you and them the opportunity to reflect, to weigh the relationship's worth against the backdrop of silence. Absence sharpens focus. It forces both parties to confront their intentions, their fears, and their hopes without the noise of constant interaction. But this only happens if you allow it. If you rush to fill the void, you rob yourself of the clarity absence can provide. You must learn to sit with the discomfort, to trust that the space you allow is not emptiness but potential. This is not easy. It requires courage to face the uncertainty of absence without succumbing to despair or control. But in doing so, you create the conditions for authenticity, for a connection that is not born of fear but of choice. Absence, then, is not the enemy. It is a tool, a teacher, a revealer of truth. It is the space where priorities are tested and where intentions are laid bare. To understand this is to transform your fear of absence into an opportunity for growth, for clarity, and for the kind of connection that can withstand the trials of time and distance. The subconscious mind is a relentless truth teller. While the conscious mind may weave stories, excuses, or rationalizations to shield itself from discomfort, the subconscious speaks its truths through action or lack thereof. It is here in this hidden realm of thought and intent that a person's genuine emotions are most clearly revealed. If you wish to understand Samo ni not their facade, not the narrative they present, but their soul, you must learn to observe the subtleties of their actions, for actions are the language of the subconscious. The subconscious test is not something you administer, it is something that unfolds naturally when space is given for people to act freely, unpressured, and unprovoked. It is in these unguarded moments that the deepest truths emerge. A person who avoids but still finds ways to stay connected, who withdraws yet leaves the door ajar, is revealing more about their internal conflict than they may even understand. Similarly, one who steps away and allows the connection to dissipate entirely is also telling you something vital. The key is to watch not with judgment but with clarity. This principle is mirrored in Scripture, where the parable of the talents reminds us that action or its absence defines character. The servants entrusted with their master's resources were free to act as they chose. Their decisions whether to invest, to preserve, or to squander were reflections of their true nature. Their actions spoke louder than any words of loyalty they could have proclaimed. Likewise, in relationships, people reveal their priorities, their fears, and their desires through the choices they make when no one is forcing their hand. The subconscious test strips away pretense. It is not about manipulation or trickery, but about creating a space where truth has no choice but to emerge. This requires patience. It demands that you resist the urge to fill the silence with questions, to extract a confession of feelings, or to force a resolution. Truth cannot be coerced. It must arise organically. And it often does so in ways that are subtle yet unmistakably, call made unexpectedly, a gesture of care amidst distance, or the quiet disappearance of someone who never intended to stay. The test is not just for them, it is also for you. How do you respond to their actions or lack thereof? Do you cling desperately to an idealized version of the relationship, refusing to see what is clearly before you? Or do you have the courage to accept their truth, even if it is not the one you hoped for? To pass this test yourself, you must cultivate the strength to face reality without bitterness and the wisdom to separate what is genuine from what is merely convenient or expedient. True emotional investment cannot be hidden. It is revealed in the small, consistent acts of care and attention that transcend words. If someone values a connection, their subconscious will guide them towards sustaining it, no matter how fearful or avoidant they may appear. Conversely, if their actions consistently betray indifference, no amount of explanation or justification can alter that reality. It is in observing these subtle cues unfiltered by expectation or demand that you find the clarity to move forward with integrity, no longer a prisoner to uncertainty, but a steward of truth. Boundaries are not walls, though they are often mistaken for such. They are not instruments of separation, but structures of integrity. To establish a boundary is to declare, this is where I begin and this is where I end. It is to honor your own value and, paradoxically, to respect the autonomy of others. A boundary is not a demand for compliance. It is a statement of self-worth, an acknowledgement that love without respect is no love at all. Boundaries reveal truth. They test the fabric of relationships, exposing the strength or frailty of the connections we hold dear. When you set a boundary with an avoidant individual, you are not punishing them. You are inviting them into clarity, into the reality of mutual respect and accountability. For what is a relationship if not a covenant of equals, where both parties are seen, valued, and honored? To abandon boundaries is to invite chaos, and chaos, as we know, is the antithesis of creation. The Bible teaches us that even God, in His infinite love, sets boundaries. The Garden of Eden was a place of abundance and freedom, yet it came with a clear directive: eat of any tree but this one. That boundary was not arbitrary. It was a call to responsibility, a reminder that freedom without structure leads to destruction. In the same way, boundaries in relationships are not acts of exclusion, but invitations to engagement. They say, this is the standard I hold for myself and for us. Will you meet me here? The avoidant individual, often entrenched in their fear of intimacy, may recoil at boundaries. They may perceive them as ultimatums or as threats to their autonomy. But this reaction is not a reflection of the boundary itself. It is a mirror of their internal struggle. To love someone who avoids is to walk the delicate line between compassion and self-preservation, to hold space for their fears while refusing to compromise your own dignity. Establishing a boundary requires courage. It means risking the loss of a relationship for the sake of its truth. But to shy away from that risk is to accept a counterfeit version of connection, one built on appeasement rather than authenticity. True love is not passive. It does not acquiesce to disrespect or diminish itself to accommodate fear. True love stands firm even in the face of rejection, because it understands that real connection can only flourish in the soil of mutual respect.